5 years old. I started thinking about what I was eating and thinking about what I was doing. When you're very young, you think you're just gonna live forever. And then
all right, y'all. I just want to let you know we are live streaming on YouTube now.
All right. Sounds good.
Yeah.
Hey.
How you doing?
Hello.
Hey, Ricky.
Hey.
All right.
How's everybody?
Great. I'm okay.
All ready to get started? 5:30?
It's about that time.
Okay, let's see. No meeting for Parks and Recreation, is that right?
Correct.
Correct.
Okay, we'll move right into planning and development then.
I'm gonna call to order the regular meeting of the Planning and Development Committee. First item on the agenda, Ms. Schuler.
Can't hear you.
Jesse, we can't hear you.
Can you still not hear me?
Now we can hear
Now
you
we
now.
can hear you.
That's really weird. I wasn't on mute. Try again. Oh, you can't hear me again?
When you lean in, we can't hear you. Like when you go like that. But if you're straight up, we can hear you.
Petition by Philip A. Berlinski to annex Dorchester County TMS numbers 153 00 00 012 013 and 032, located off Ridge Road and Samuels Lane and totaling approximately 35.82 acres. Currently zoned R4 multifamily residential in Dorchester County and will be zoned MFR multifamily residential into the town of Summerville's municipal limits. This would be in Council District 5. Planning Commission held a public hearing and made a recommendation for approval at their meeting on January 25th, 2021.
Anybody have any questions or comments for Ms. Schuler? Not, is there a motion?
Bob, you're muted.
I'll make a motion, we approve that.
Your motion is that we recommend the council approve?
Yes.
Is there a second? Am I the only other committee member present? I'll second it. Any further discussion? If not, I'll call for the question. All those in favor, raise your right hand and say aye.
Aye.
It's unanimous. Next item.
Bill, who else is on your committee?
Mr. Jenkins.
Yeah, I see Terry, but I can't hear him.
Well,
Terry,
we'll
Terry's here, but Terry, sorry, I must have gotten confused. I'm thinking I'm on public work, but okay.
Okay.
I still voted in favor of it.
Okay. All right, Bill, excuse me. Go ahead.
All right, request to rezone a portion of TMS number, which is it's not a portion anymore, it's the whole number. Rezone TMS number 13709010057, located on Central Avenue, approximately 2.98 acres and owned by 725 Central LLC, from PUD Planned Development District to MFR multifamily residential. This is in Council District 1. Planning Commission held a public hearing and made a recommendation for approval at their meeting on January 25th, 2021.
I'll make a motion that we move that to council for approval.
Second.
Ms. Schuler, I do have some questions. The current PUD, who was the owner of the property when the current PUD was negotiated?
I'm not entirely sure who the owner was. It was back in 1984 or 85, I believe. It was actually R4 at the time before we had our PUD ordinance.
So when did it become a PUD and how?
It became a PUD in 2006 when the R4 was eliminated from the zoning ordinance and replaced with the PUD ordinance.
So these owners never asked to be a PUD?
That is correct.
And what does the PUD that they have for it allow them to do?
It allows them to do apartments, townhome style apartments, which are currently on the property, on the piece of the property that is left from. So it was one large piece. It got subdivided. One piece has all the apartments on it. The other piece is vacant.
Right. So is it still under the same ownership, or do you know?
It's currently still owned. It's under contract, but it's currently still owned by the same owners.
So are the same owners, are they going to give them ingress and egress through the apartment complex that's already there?
We haven't really gotten to site plan stuff yet, but I'm not sure entirely about that. But they do have access to Central on the other side as well.
Right. Well, I guess that's what I'm trying to get at is there a way to avoid an additional curb cut on that section of Central Avenue where traffic is horrendous?
I mean, we typically require connectivity if at all possible, so we would likely require it, yes. And I don't know that SCDOT would allow a curb cut there. But I'm not sure.
I'm just concerned that it helps a little bit to know that the property owner never actually asked to be a PUD. It was just kind of hoisted upon them in 2006. What is it that they can't do with the PUD that they now want to do and think they should get rezoned?
So at the time the PUD was approved, the only thing it was approved for was exactly what's on the property currently.
Which is apartments.
Yes, but the exact number of apartments.
So, in other words, you're saying with the current PUD zoning, they can't build anything?
Correct. Without amending the PUD or doing a major amendment to the PUD.
Wouldn't it not give us more control over the development if we amended the PUD rather than just giving them multifamily zoning?
This is what they requested.
Okay, well, I just, and if they get MFR zoning for 3 acres, how many dwelling units will they be able to build?
I'm not entirely sure. It depends on, obviously they'd have to meet stormwater requirements, open space, park space, parking, road. So, I mean, it's probably, based on what the applicant stated, it would probably be about 20 to 30 units.
Do you know how many units are on the parcel in front of it that they already own?
I believe it's 32 units on the parcel already.
All right, I don't have any further questions.
McIntosh, I'm not on your committee, but can I ask a question or make a?
Absolutely.
All right. In looking at the planning commission's the staff report, that to amend the PUD, it would have to become mixed use. And I'm struggling to see why we don't require it to be mixed use if they want to have a PUD, so we get some commercial property in there. The PUD doesn't allow anything as it is, but if it's amended, it could be amended to provide for commercial use. And that would have the benefit of servicing the people that live in that area instead of adding to that horrendous traffic problem on Central Avenue. I mean, people have to live somewhere, but I think we're getting inundated with apartment complexes. I think we need to take a look at how many of those we're doing and where we're doing. And that's just a terrifically crowded area of town. Just my 2 cents worth.
Well, I'd love to see it, be multi-used as well. But, looking at the layout of the property, I don't know if a commercial use is possible. I'm just, and I realize all of this predates most everybody on council, if not everyone on council, and I would think predates all of our staff, but it seems odd to me that this property owner was rezoned as a PUD without their actively requesting it, that they somehow have developed essentially half of their property with about 30 units, and the back half of their property apparently can't be developed at all unless we do something different. I mean, that in of itself is fairly mind-boggling to me, but I don't know if it's possible normally a PUD is supposed to be 5 acres or more, so I probably answered that question, but here they are, they're 3 acres and they're a PUD, and apparently the PUD doesn't allow us that doesn't allow them to build anything. I just hate to see us rezone it and have no control over the development. Whereas as it is now, they have a zoning for PUD. It can be renegotiated or amended. It seems like it would have to be amended because if I'm understanding correctly, we've somehow deprived them from any economic use of the 3 acres at all, which just seems mind-boggling to me. So, there's a motion, a second. I'm gonna vote against it. I'm gonna vote to recommend denying it, but I assume we'll take it up again on Thursday. Maybe we'll understand it better.
Bill, can I provide a little more background information if I can?
Please.
So the property owner that currently owns it just bought it in the last year. So the previous property owner, again, it went to council back in the 80s for townhome style apartment complex. I don't know why council only approved, apparently it went back and forth with the number of apartments allowed and they only approved the 82. I think it has something to do with the sewer availability because if this gets developed, they are going to have to redo the pump station on site to allow additional development. So I think maybe that had something to do with it at the time, but all I had was the council minutes which specifically stated that 8 buildings, 4 units each were approved, and that's all that was approved for this property, which I thought was kind of strange because the letter of approval stated something about the density being 11 units per acre, which doesn't add up. So I'm not, based on the information I had, that's all I had to go by.
I got you.
And when we talked to this property owner, when they were doing their due diligence on the property, we explained to them the different paths that they could take to do anything on the remainder of the property. One of them was to amend the PUD but it would have to be a mix of uses. Unfortunately, like you said, because of the way the property is sited and it's kind of behind some existing small commercial uses and it doesn't have great access. So it's not a great site for commercial development. And so they had somebody who was interested in doing townhomes on the piece. And so that was why they decided to subdivide it and go with the multifamily request for the rezoning. I don't know if that helps any, but
it might help, but it might make it worse. So 725 Central LLC, that's not the owner of the apartments in the front?
No, that is the owner, but
Okay.
they have it on the 2.98 acres. They have that under contract with someone else who would like to do townhomes.
I got you. And they just bought the property recently?
In the past year. Mm-hmm.
And did they buy it as one parcel or 2 parcels?
They bought it as one parcel.
But the subdivision's already taken place?
Correct.
And they understood when they subdivided, they understood what they were buying. And then when they subdivided it, they understood that they were going to take off 3 acres that was zoned PUD that wasn't going to allow any more units to be built on it. I don't know why they would do that. But anyway, I just, maybe between now and Thursday, I can get a better understanding. I'll go ahead and call for the question. All those in favor of recommending approval to council, raise your hand and say aye.
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 I'm a nay, so 2-1. Next item.
I don't get the vote.
Bill, I don't know, do you want me to read these next three items together? Because they all go together. The reason
I
is-
agree. I think they should all be taken up at once. It's the same deal.
Right. So if you don't mind, I'll just read C, D, and E all together, and then y'all can consider them all together. Does that work? Or do y'all need to make that motion?
Nope.
I don't think we need a motion. Just tell us what's going on.
All right, will do. Request to rezone TMS number 14507055057, located on Miles Jamison Road, approximately 4.59 acres and owned by Diana T. Davis from PUD Plan Development District to MFR Multifamily Residential. This is Council District 3. Planning Commission held a public hearing and made a recommendation for denial at their meeting on January 25th, 2021. Petition by Diana T. Davis to annex TMS number 14507055056, located at the corner of Miles Jamison Road and Pebbles Lane, and totaling approximately 0.55 acres, currently zoned R1 single family residential in Dorchester County, and will be zoned MFR multifamily residential upon annexation into the town of Summerville's municipal limits. This is also Council District 3. Planning Commission held a public hearing and made a recommendation for denial at their meeting on January 25th. And petition by Julius W. and Andrea T. Bean to annex TMS number 145070554, located at 507 Miles Jamison Road, totaling approximately 1.57 acres, currently zoned TRM, Transitional Residential District in Dorchester County, and will be zoned MFR, Multifamily Residential, upon annexation into the town of Summerville's municipal limits. Council District 3, Planning Commission held a public hearing and made a recommendation for denial at their meeting on January 25th, 2021.
I'm going to make a motion that we also recommend denial. I think the Planning Commission got it right.
Jesse,
Yes, sir.
if you could, based on our a very brief conversation today, is this not the piece of property that they have altered in several ways and offered a separate design exit?
Yes, sir. I forwarded to y'all earlier today a revised design by the applicant that switched the location of the building and the parking area, and also changed where the one of the access points would be to try and address the concern about not being able to see along the curve of the road. The applicant, Sarah Neiman, is actually on the meeting if you'd like a better explanation from her. But that is the property that we did discuss and that I did forward the information to y'all earlier today.
If it remains in the county, what can be put there?
Really just, I think R1 is single family homes. I think it's similar to our GR2 zoning in terms of what's allowed, and TRM is, it's even stricter. I think it's a single family home, 1 per acre or something like that.
Thank you. Give me just a second. And the size of this development has also been reduced. Am I correct?
Well, it's not that the size has been reduced, so the total
Number.
acreage, yeah, the number of units. So they were originally proposing 90 units, and they've reduced that to 72.
The only thing based on what you showed me today, Jesse, I did ride up to Miles Jamison to see from Pebbles Lane and then down towards Ricky, you remember the name of it, the nursery.
At Bombadil's. That's
across the street. And if the concern is the curve and hazard conditions, in the drawing that I saw, if it goes down, I'm going to call it 75 yards or something, to where the exit from this would be closer to Bombadil's. When you pull out there, there is clear line of sight to a red light. So from a hazardous perspective, should that be where the exit from the property is, if my estimation of where it would be is correct? I think the hazardous part of this has been eliminated. Now, Sarah, I'd ask you if you're on, am I correct in my assumption of where that comes out looking at the drawing?
Correct. We supplied a new alternative because we did receive feedback as far as the curve of the road being a potential question for site visibility for anyone entering or exiting the senior apartments. I sent over today a revised site plan that kind of shows a couple things. One, we wanted to make sure that the buffer showed as far as what we are proposing. And I've got a buffer on there from anywhere between almost 200 feet to 45 feet from any use that's around me. And then the question was asked about the curve in the road, and the curve in the road is actually on, you're going around these parcels, and you can't see around the parcels because it's a wooded tract of land. Obviously the proposal, and I also gave you a different look on the proposal too. Initially, we just simply placed the senior building closer to the road, just thinking that that would be a better option to buffer from single family. But if the road visibility is a concern and you think the building is blocking it, then I gave you the option today where we flip-flopped it and we put the building in the center of the site, still maintaining the additional buffer. But then that allows the parking to go in the front, and it allows 2 entrances and exits to the property. So we can have one closer to what I'll say is the properties of all the town of Summerville, and then the additional tract of land that we would like to annex in, we were going to keep completely natural. But we have complete flexibility as far as how anybody would like to see the site layout. I'm underutilizing a big portion of the land, so we can bring that road over. And I did the same thing. I tried to send y'all snapshots of what the road looks like looking at the corner, so that how far back would I get where I could still see the traffic light in view. And correct, it kind of starts with about 502 Miles Jamison Road. That's a single family home. And then as you go towards the abandoned nursery, visibility gets clearer. And then if you're leaving the other side of the property, it's on the totally other side, and you would have 2 ways to exit out safely. And then this still allows the city to control that corner, because I know right now most of this land is in the county. But by annexing 2 of these 3 parcels, this, we would now, all of it would come into the city. And we did reduce the number of units. That was a comment in Planning Commission, that they thought that a reduction of the units would help. So we did come in and offer that as a proposal. And of these units, 70% will be 1-bedroom units. Because this is going to be a senior 55 and up community, and it will be deeded to the property. So this will remain a senior community. I'm not coming in and zoning it one thing and then turning around and doing it the other. We don't, that's bad business for me, and we want to be good neighbors. So I'm open to suggestions.
Thank you. I'd like to apologize. This is Councilman McIntosh's committee, and I kind of usurped and stepped in and asked some questions without allowing him to guide this, and I am apologetic for that. We'll wait until it's time for me to speak.
There is a motion on the table to recommend denial.
I'm okay with moving it to council with a recommendation to denial, but I do have some questions that may change my opinion.
Would you second it for the purposes of discussion?
Yes.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Mr. Jackson.
I guess I just said what I should have waited on. So I'll just ditto Terry's apology since I did that. And no, I have some questions, and that being a senior center and that intersection being so bad, if we could work something out to kind of change the alignment of that intersection so that we can get some turn cues and stuff, similar to the idea that I emailed everybody today. It may change my opinion, and we are short on senior housing, and I find it unlikely that we're going to get single family residents that would like to build right there. There's a mobile home park across the street, and then the property for the nursery. And then on the other corner, it's a veterinary. So it's pretty much a commercial corner as it is.
Well, I watched the Planning Commission meeting via Zoom, and I do appreciate that the developer or prospective developer has taken some steps to, I think, try to make a development of this nature work for this property. It is zone residential. It backs up to residential property in the Oak Knoll neighborhood. I know that it borders at least 4, if not 5, residences in Oak Knoll. I learned at the Planning Commission that that neighbors don't actually get actual notice. If they drive by and see a notice, on Miles Jamison, they can, I guess, stop their car and go look, or they can, if they're reading the legals in the newspaper, then they have legal notice, constructive notice. But I don't know that anybody, the 4 or 5 property owners, residences that bought houses adjoining residential property, I don't know whether they know about this or not. I think taking it from 90 to 70 units is a good idea. There appears to be an attempt to buffer those 4 or 5 residences and bring, I guess, a 3-story apartment building right on Miles Jamison Road. I don't know. I mean, when I drove down Pebbles Lane after the Planning Commission meeting, it was hard to get down there. I know they'll have to do a lot of construction, but it was hard to turn down there and turn around and amid all the no trespassing signs. But when I came back to Miles Jamison and looked immediately to my left, pulling out of Pebbles Lane. It was an absolute blind spot, an absolute dead man's curve. So, you know, whether the engineering gets it right or not, I don't know. You know, I would prefer if it is the wish of council to put 72 apartments essentially on 4.5 acres. I know they're bringing in a couple other parcels, but I think all 72 units are going to be on 4.5 acres that are now zoned residential. If that's the wish of council, it would seem to me that, you know, particularly since it's being added to another 1/2 acre and another 1.5 acres, so it's going to end up being about 7 acres, but you have 72 apartments on 4.5 acres of it. It seems to me it would make more sense to try to put this on to the side for a moment, to not go with the multifamily residential zoning and try to negotiate a planned unit development where we'd have a lot more control over how it's developed and possibly get some commercial use, perhaps as you go to the other side of Pebbles Lane towards the veterinary clinic. But because that parcel doesn't actually back up to town residents. So my basic take on it is that developers are trying to be flexible. They're trying to get to make something work on a piece of property that just seems that the shape of the property and more importantly, the location of the property just seems extraordinarily ill-suited for something like this. So I mean, you know, at this point, I'm a vote to recommend denial. I mean, I've looked my email. I don't see where I got an email today from staff about any changes, but I may be mistaken.
Mr. McIntosh, again, I'm not on the committee, but if I can just make a brief comment, I could save this, I guess, for the council meeting if it gets there. But my concern is that in the county, this is, I'm going to call it R1. It's a single family residential. And in our, the report states, the comprehensive plan and the land use map show this as single family residential. And I'm just very, very hesitant to take the leap from single family residential to multi-family use with the number of units that are going to be here. I mean, we're not getting any new single family residential, and I don't think ought to give up what we've got. And I am concerned that we've got this land use map and we've got the comprehensive plan that's used by staff to justify their decisions. But if they want to do something else and they just can get around it, and they've quoted the portion of the comprehensive plan that they're using here. It says, quote, encourage housing diversity, that is single family homes, townhouses, and apartments or condominiums at the block and neighborhood levels that allow for downsizing within the local area. If you apply that, you can apply that on every zoning area in town. No residential area is going to be safe from apartment complexes and townhouses and so forth. If that's given the application that is given this staff report.
If I may speak to that, Mr. McIntosh.
Well, I mean, I don't know. Did you, Mr. Bailey, did you ask Ms. Schuler a question? Is there anybody on the committee?
Point out that provision was a justification for getting away from the single family residential character of this property. And again, I was just pointing out that if you use that logic, then you could say that the zoning is out the window. I mean, if you want to say that encourage housing diversity to the extent they're talking about here in any neighborhood, we have no zoning if you do that. Just an observation.
I just wanted to clarify, but if you don't want me to, that's fine.
I mean, is there anybody that has any questions for Ms. Schuler? Is there any further discussion on this issue?
Yeah, I'd like to know what you'd like to clarify, because like I said, I do have some questions, and I think maybe those roads in future planning may be able to be straightened out while also helping the flow at the intersection, which is crazy. So if you could allow Ms. Schuler to speak, I would appreciate it.
Yes, I mean, I'm just waiting for somebody to ask her a question or ask her for input.
I just wanted to clarify that the staff wasn't using that as justification per se, just taking from the comp plan to explain different reasons why you could. I wanted y'all to have all the information available, and that was specific to senior housing, not any housing. That was specifically in the senior housing section of the comp plan, the aging in place section. That's all I would wanted to point out. And I also wanted to point out that this, if y'all choose to go forward with this development will have to do a traffic impact analysis, which could address Mr. Jackson's concerns about the intersection.
Yeah, and I think what kind of swayed my mind is when they switched to senior housing, having senior parents. I know a lot of people are having trouble finding affordable housing that are seniors. And a one-bedroom house isn't going to have a bunch of kids and traffic running around, because these people are going to pretty much stay home.
I do have a question now, Ms. Schuler. The comprehensive plan, will it need to be, if we rezone this property, will the comprehensive plan need to be amended or not?
I don't think it would necessarily have to be because of the aging in place caveat, but if y'all would think it's necessary to amend it, the future land use plan, you could.
Well, I guess I'm going at it from a different direction, because I never wanted a comprehensive plan or a future land use plan that would ever need to be amended or minimize the possibility of it ever needing to be amended. But I know when we approved some annexations recently, we were told we had to go in and amend the comprehensive plan first. So I just, if it's now currently zoned single family residential, and it's your opinion that we can rezone it to multifamily residential without amending the comprehensive plan, I mean, if that's it, and Mr. Parker agrees with that, then I'm fine, because I don't want a comprehensive plan that has to be amended every time that we decide for whatever reason to change the zoning. Any further discussion? The motion on the table is to recommend denial to council for Thursday night.
Mr. McIntosh, could you make it a little clearer what you're talking about when we say you're going to deny it as a committee, the reasons that you're denying it at this time?
Well, we don't deny or approve. We recommend the council. The planning commission looked at it and they recommended denial. I think that the issues are multiple. That area of Miles Jamison is extraordinarily curvy, 2-lane road. The 4.5 acres that's already in the town, where a 3-story 72-unit apartment complex would be built, is zoned single family residential, and it borders, by my count, 5 other single family residences in Summerville, which are in the Oak Knoll neighborhood in Summerville. I'm concerned that I'm not sure. I mean, I don't believe any of those folks got actual notice. I know they got legal constructive notice. They bought their property as single family residential, and they were joining single family residential. The annexing the 2 smaller pieces may allow them to do something with that intersection or with that essential S curve in Miles Jamison to make it safer. I think if we go that route, we should zone them a PUD and negotiate it all out. Not move anything until we get the PUD exactly how we want it. Not rezone something from single family to multifamily and hope that everybody does what they say they're going to do.
Okay, I appreciate that because obviously then, we're not opposed to senior housing, particularly affordable senior housing. We just want to make sure that it works best for the residents of Summerville.
I think there are multiple places in town on the market right now that would be perfect for something like this. But I mean, when you drive down that section, when you turn off a trolley onto Miles Jamison and you go on Miles Jamison from Trolley to Gahagan, it's very narrow. It's very curvy. What I see as the ingress and egress is a very narrow dirt road called Pebbles Lane. Obviously, they'll have to improve that, but the situation now is when you pull out to out of Pebbles Lane to Miles Jamison and look to your left, you don't have hardly any vision to your left before you hit a pretty serious curve. I mean, if DOT or whomever is going to straighten out that curve or cut down a bunch of trees to improve the line of sight, then maybe it works. It just seems like that you wouldn't just rezone it, though. You would make it a PUD and not sign off on the PUD until you had everything in place.
Thank you.
If I could, Mr. McIntosh, originally I was under the perception that the size of the number of units and the size of the units and the site in terms of pulling out to the road were the issues, and I was fully on board with that. Those two issues, so to speak, have been addressed, but I think that, I'm unsure of the properness of what I'm going to ask the question, but without rejecting or denying, if what you just suggested in a PUD to work through the new elements of that for much of what I've just heard for the first time tonight, is that a direction that we can head for this to go back to the board to review this again?
Here's where I think we are. I think that we can do probably 4 different things, but the first one I really wouldn't recommend. I mean, we could simply table it or actually more properly postpone it to our next meeting, or we can send it to council, and we can send it to council 3 different ways. Recommendation of approval, recommendation of denial, or no recommendation at all. I mean, it's council's decision, not the committee's.
No, and apologies, and I understand that, but when you were talking about, in your opinion, the proper way to go about this was to go back into a PUD and bring it forward in a different fashion. If I understood that correctly, how do we accomplish that if that is correct? Assuming you are.
I don't think this committee can do anything in that regard. I mean,
no,
the property owner would they'd want it to be a PUD. I mean, I don't think we'd ever just zone people without their requesting it to be rezoned. I mean, we try not to do that. This particular property owner on the 4.5 acres was actually also the owner, it looks like, on an additional ½ acre. So she is the owner of 5.5 of the 7 acres. She's the part that she has in town where all of the building would take place is currently zoned single family residential. She wants it to be rezoned multifamily. She may or may not want it to be rezoned as a PUD. I'm just suggesting that if we have concerns about the site, about the traffic, or anything else that something that may potentially be fixed in the development stage, zoning something as a PUD gives the town a whole lot more control over how something is developed than zoning it multifamily residential. But that would be a discussion for the property owner, for Ms. Davis, and I guess planning staff, if she wanted to request something different from what she is requesting.
Okay.
She currently has a PUD is the other thing. My understanding is she has a PUD on the 4.5 acres that's in town for one residence. She could have had, single family residential. Probably when the UDO came in, she would have had, I would think, GR5 for that, maybe GR2, but either way, she would have had the ability to build somewhere between 10 and 20 houses in there, it looks like, single family residences. But for whatever reason, she has a plan unit development that allows the building of one house. Obviously that if somebody comes to us and wants to be rezoned because they don't want to just have one house on 4.5 acres, I would think we would want to try to assist them in that regard. You could amend the PUD, or you could rezone it, either of our single family residential designations to allow, a much more economical use of the property instead of one dwelling, maybe 10, maybe 15, maybe even 20, but to go from one house to 72 apartments on 4.5 acres, hoping that the traffic situation gets resolved. I mean, I would rather amend the PUD to ensure that the traffic situation gets resolved if we're going to do it.
Councilman McIntosh, who made the motion, you or me?
I made the motion, you seconded.
Okay. I would like to change that motion to move it to council without recommendation if we could. And if the developer wants to withdraw and look at the plans, that could be their choice.
Well, in that case, I will amend my motion to move this to council without recommendation. If you will second my amendment.
I will.
And I'm going to go ahead and assume that we are all in agreement with my amendment. I'm going to call for the question that we move these three items to council without recommendation. All those in favor say aye.
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 Unanimous. Next item.
Proposed amendment to the town code, chapter 28, article 3, to add section 28-92, heavy vehicles prohibited.
And will you tell us what this is, Ms. Schuler?
Yes, sir. Previously, basically the parking of tractor trailers, that sort of vehicle was in our zoning ordinance. There was a special use permit for those who, at the time when it was adopted in 2002, parked their vehicles currently on residential properties. And that special use permit allowed them to continue to park their vehicles there as long as they renewed it every year. We have not had any of those renewals for a number of years, so there's really no reason to have that special use permit anymore, which is the only reason why it was in the zoning ordinance. And so this is just moving it back to the location it was previously located in to prohibit the parking of tractor trailer vehicles on residential property.
All right. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve that or send that to council for approval.
Second.
Any questions or any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye. These Zoom meetings, it's hard to remember whether you're in council or committee.
It's unanimous. And the item G, I am not aware whether we're prepared to go forward with that presentation or not. If we are, I would invite Mr. Brislin to begin his presentation.
He's ready.
Yeah, let me get myself unmuted.
Hey, Gene.
Hello, Mayor. How are you, sir? Hello, Councilman.
Hi.
Thank you for the opportunity to talk a little bit, at least from a practitioner's point of view, about the Uniform Development Ordinance. And so in my discussions with several of the council members, one of the things that bothered me, and that's why I wanted to speak, is it's more of an educational, at least in my opinion, an educational view of that document. One of the things about a practitioner is you get a chance to look at things from two points of view. One is my old Air Force terminology, a 35,000 foot look down. So you see things in a bigger picture than just being local. And so the other thing is that that document is a lot of words. There's some pictures in there, but it requires the ability to read that document and then try to visualize what that means, again, in a very big picture. There's a lot of discussion in there, kind of what I call locally or at the building level. But when you take that and apply that to the town, the question is the scope of that. One of my observations as a practitioner was it was large, very drastic. And we had several meetings at the chamber, and when the UDO was being kind of batted around and developed, and that was one of my observations then, was that what impressed me was the span and reach of that document in terms of how it changes, or at least it seems to change the character of our town. I grew up in rural South Carolina in a very small town, 2,000 people. And that town was typical of most South Carolina towns in the sense that it had a city center, retail space, where the farmers, tobacco farmers where I grew up, would come to shop on Saturdays and Sundays. But as you got out of town, not very far, I mean, half a mile away from that city, that town center, everything was more spread out. Houses were on an acre of land, usually in the center, in the back. There were big front yards, big backyards. And, I think if you look at how South Carolina has developed over the years, from the 40s and 50s, Summerville being that too, is it's typical of a typical South Carolina town. Now, we do have urban areas. The Peninsula of Charleston's a prime example. Columbia is a prime example. Urban areas that resemble large urban areas like New York. King Street downtown is, buildings right next to each other, touching each other in terms of property lines, and right on the property line with sidewalks. Walk all down King Street, all around Broad. I mean, that's a very urban development, very pedestrian friendly. You walk around. They have mass transit down there. You can ride the bus. So Columbia is similar to that in the Main Street area. Columbia is a little more diverse as you get away from, even on Bull Street or away from the Capitol, you'll see it spread out a little bit more, not quite as compact as Charleston. But it has mass transit too, buses that run around Columbia and allow that. But our town was originally that small rural town, and it was developed that way. And except for Hutton Square, except for that compact area downtown, we're spread out quite a bit. And so when you look at the UDO, and Leonard, are you there? Can I share my screen?
Yeah, you should be able to. You have permission to.
All right, let me figure out.
Okay,
thank you. let me see, where do I do that?
It should be in the middle at the bottom. If you click on anywhere on the screen, you'll see share screen, and then it'll bring up a little window, and you just share it.
Got it.
wherever.
How's that?
That works.
So these are some pictures from the and I'm not going to presume to know the intent. Again, I'm providing comments as a practitioner. So the idea is to look at the document and take it for what it is. And these are my personal observations and my opinions. So if I look through that document, you can see on the left, it's on the left of mine, maybe on the right of yours, the streetscape that it shows, which it says more urban, more rural. And the focus of that document seems to be more urban, right? The idea is to change the character of that small rural town to more urban like Charleston. And if you look at their pictures, which are here, and examples from in that document, these two are residential, this is commercial. You'll see that they're very urban, front flat buildings with windows, whether it's retail space down and livable space upstairs. The commercial buildings are all a lot of glass. There's a 65% requirement for translucent stuff. And as you can see over here in the streetscape, you know, that's their anticipation. So Hutchinson Square, I mean, the buildings on both sides of that are a prime example of what this is kind of leaning towards, or at least that's the picture of the development. And so that's not necessarily a bad thing, but it does create kind of an interesting dynamic in terms of the scope. The other thing that in trying to fulfill this kind of view or this development of the property, there are several requirements that kind of push that. In our mixed use areas, both downtown and other, the UC mixed use. If you look in the red box here, you'll see that the front setbacks is a 5-foot maximum. That means that the building has to be within 5 foot of the property line, front property line. Now, in the Summerville, because of the depth mold survey, we have a lot of 100-foot right-of-ways, which is a little odd. But still, even with that 100-foot right-of-way, these buildings will be right on the property line. So it won't quite be as crowded as King Street, but it will be, you know, close. They'll be right on the property line. The other thing is that if you're on an interior piece of property, and I've got some views to show this, you have to be within 5 foot, again, max. So that means you have to be within 5 foot of the property line. Very urban, right? Drastically different than that rural town, except right in the middle, right? And again, Summerville was developed like that. You get away from Hutchinson Square in any direction, less than a half a mile, and you'll see, I have a 3D view. We have buildings on property with a lot of space. The other thing that and again, I'm focusing on in this, there's a lot of components to the UDO, and this is the one that I feel has the biggest impact. So that's why I'm kind of focusing on it. I mean, we could talk about other things, but I just want to focus on this one right now. The other thing has to do with parking, right? So in the parking location in this document requires that parking is either in the rear, mostly in the rear. You see that for DMX, it's in the rear. UCMX allows rear and side. That has implications. Again, that pushes the buildings to the front and to the left or right of your property, in the sense that everything's going to be like Hutchinson. Again, you're going to be like King Street. Everything's going to be right on the property lines. Now, that sounds okay. I mean, that doesn't seem to be a big issue. But what's interesting about that, and if you'll indulge me here as I change software. This is a map of Summerville, obviously. The town was kind enough to share with me their zoning information. So thank you, Ms. Vance, for that. I have two colors here, purple and green. Purple and green are the two zoning areas that I'm speaking about with this 5-foot requirement.
Mr. Brislin, I
And
don't
as
think
I
we
zoom
can see your map.
Yeah, it didn't
Okay.
switch.
Okay, didn't switch yet?
No.
No,
Okay. All right. Let's see. Oh, it says paused. Okay, hold on a minute. Operator error. How was that?
still, it is.
Can you see the town?
Yep.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
good.
All right. So apparently when I change software, I've got to reshare it again. I apologize. So if you look at the green and the purple, those are two areas that require by the UDO this particular urban development. Now, I want you to, and it's going to take some minute for it to refresh here. It's got to kind of read all the data. If you notice, that's from all the way downtown at Hutchinson, all the way down to the cow farm.
Gone again, Gene.
Out here.
There it is, it's back.
So all of this area, and also it turns out, I'm not going to zoom out, but down Trolley Road and into Oak Brook has the same zoning. All of those would require the buildings to be right on the property line. So all of these areas are going to look like at some point in the future, Hutchinson Square. Now, the problem we have as a town is that we didn't develop that way, right? The property boundaries are not cut that make that very executable. It creates gaps, right? There's just going to be kind of spaces in between, which are buffers. And it turns out, as I'll show you, you're going to need it because of parking. And so it's not like we're just taking Hutchinson Square and we're doing another block, say down by the CPW building or down Cedar a little bit, right? We're talking about Mr. K's, all of this residential area by the post office, behind Coastal Coffee Road, everything where the chamber is, all of those buildings. And the other problem is we're talking 100 years in the future, right? Buildings tend to last a long time. Charleston's urban, that's a 300-year-old city, right? So we're talking way in the future before this vision would actually create the kind of picture that's in the UDO. And so, I know the intent was to create a pedestrian friendly, and I'm empathetic, right? Cars are, an issue, but I'm not sure, at least it's confusing to me how to get there, right? So another thing I did is I took this one block right here. I'm sorry, I have to zoom in here. I took this block right here off of East First North Street in North Gum. And you can see the existing buildings are off the property lines, most like others, right? We've cited them in a bunch of different places. And oh, by the way, that we can, now I got to reach here. Hold on, let's see. me 1 second. Can you see that? Everybody see the 3D picture?
Yep.
Okay, so these are all the building footprints. One of the problems is I did not have the building heights. So I randomly generated heights. So don't get panicky. Those buildings are taller than they really are. But I just wanted to create some depth to the idea. So again, all of the purple area and all of the green area, all of those buildings 100 years from now won't be there. They will all be on the edge of the block, on the property, right? And so that's a significant change. Not only is it a significant change, the scope of the change is significant. Again, this also applies to all the city property all the way down Trolley Road and in Oak Brook, right? So like the Lowe's Center down there or any of the buildings down there would be drastically different from the UDO. Those types of buildings are what's called shopping center zoning, and so they require outbuildings. So even if you have a big building that's back from the property, kind of the old shopping center type building, with the new UDO, you'd still have to have buildings out there on the property line. So everywhere you turn in a road, right there next to you is a building, which again is of a different character than what we have now. So one more share here, if I may. And we'll see if I can do this. Yes. So this is the block I was speaking of. What I've done is just did some random buildings. They're roughly 1- and 2-story buildings. They're all located 5 feet off the property line and 5 foot from the left or right property line. Now, because of having parking in the rear, you're going to have a driveway next to the building. And that driveway, if it's supporting 2-way traffic, has to be 24 foot wide. Some of those properties are only 50 foot wide or 40 foot wide. So that means that your building can only be 20 or 25 foot wide. There's no way around that because you can't execute the parking with the building size. So the UDO, besides there's some design guidelines in there too, but based even on this change of character is forcing designers, practitioners like myself, into very specific designs to meet the requirements to park in the rear and be on the property line and create this kind of urban look. Now, is that good or bad? I don't know. That's your council's decision. I'm just trying to kind of give you the 30,000 foot view from the practitioner's point of view of what that is. Now, again, that, I'm going to have to change this for a second. That particular configuration would be true, and this is just the DMX area, all the way down here. So like Mr. K's over here, if you've got a big piece of property like that, which is, development from time before, now is going to be somewhat of an issue. You're going to have property that you're going to have a hard time using. Again, you're going to have to be located on the front, 5 foot from the frontage property line. And that, again, that 5 foot is max. You have to be less than 5. So Summerville, and the urban picture that the UDO creates is based on a certain density, right? And you guys talk about density all the time. And Summerville's in this odd density point, right? We have, we're not quite dense enough to be, urban, but we're not the small rural town that I grew up in. And so I don't know what the right answer is. I just wanted to present this kind of view so that you could be more educated in terms of when you look at that document, understand the scope of what's going on in that document, and translating those words into pictures, I think is important. Councilman McIntosh, I think that's all I have, unless somebody has some questions.
Well, thank you, Mr. Brislin. I think this was informative for the committee. We got a couple more committee meetings. So, I mean, unless somebody has a question, I think that it's given us plenty to chew on as we move forward in figuring out where we're going with our zoning and planning ordinances.
Sure.
If no one has any questions for Mr. Brislin at this time, I'd invite you to follow up with him, get his contact information. I know we're going to be discussing the items, the issues that you raised, but if not, if there's a motion to adjourn.
So
Mr. McIntosh?
moved. Oh, sorry.
No, sorry. Mr. Jean, if you could you share those with us so that we can kind of use those as we're talking through some of our issues?
Yeah, more than happy to share everything I got. Yes, be
All
more
right.
than happy to, Ms. Vance.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Motion to adjourn.
I'll second the motion. All those in favor, raise your right hand, say aye. Aye.
All right.
We're adjourned.
Oh, sorry, I was muted.
Well, I can't see anybody anyhow.
We got, there you go.
All right, now.
All right, we
now I
ready
can.
for, no public safety, we ready for public works.
Okay. All right, we'll start our committee. Russ, what do you have for us?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Just got a few project updates. One quick claim deed request we got in this week, and that's really about it. Let's see if anyone has anything, but I'll go on start with the project updates. First item was Maple Street, kind of still in the same status we were. We'll have one more property to acquire, and hopefully that'll be done soon. Still waiting on final approval from DOT for the project. Hopefully that'll be done soon as well. I will give an update on the 4 properties that we had asbestos looked at. Those properties will begin abatement beginning next Monday. And then we'll be able to demolish or move them after that's completed. Next item is the Cedar Street Extension project. It is currently in preliminary design. I was hoping to get a 70% design last month, but I should be getting that February 12th, around February 12th. And I'll be able to share those when I receive them. Like I said, last month after we received the right-of-way design, we need to make some decisions on how to move forward or with this project. Cedar Street, Central Avenue sidewalk, that we are currently trying to finalize plans for phase 1. Phase 1 will be around Carolina out to Parsons Road. Those plans are being developed for construction right now. West 5th South sidewalk, I'll be meeting with our consultants on that later this week to finalize those plans and have those ready for construction this spring as well. Lee Street sidewalk, we did acquire our DOT permit last week on this project. So we'll be ready to go on that one as well too. We are going to need to get some slope permissions from 8 properties there for some rating issues, but we think we could get those pretty easily.
Russ, if I could ask you a question about that real quick. I'm sorry, I'd forgotten. Which side of the road did you all decide that the sidewalk would be the best?
It will be on the left side as you're traveling into King Charles Circle from Bacon's Bridge.
Okay, on the left-hand side. Okay, well, I do have a question, but I'm gonna leave it to the very end.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Next item is the North Hickory Street sidewalk. That's our CDBG project this year. We're still waiting on railroad approval for the railroad crossing, but after that, we are ready to go with this one. Item number 7 is Shepherd Park drainage. We made some progress, good progress there last month. Our stormwater department will be mobilizing on the People Street portion of this project early March to install that pipe. The pipe was ordered and it's been delivered. So once we finish up some other projects, we'll better mobilize there and start that portion of the project. We currently have the regional retention pond out to bid. So it'll bid on March 2nd. And that scope of work contains clearing, grubbing, excavation, and grading of the pond. After that's done, stormwater department will come in and install the associated pipes and outfall structure and have to get the pond functioning. We've had pretty good interest. I think we've had four contractors call and asking about the project. So we are going to have hopefully some good bids there. And we are also applying for the RIA grant again for this project. Hopefully we'll get this project 75% funded. The US 78 North Summerville drainage study has presented that to the committee in January. After that, we were looking at, I've actually got a proposal this weekend to look at that entire drainage basin and to kind of restrict development and beef up our stormwater requirements in that drainage basin to not exacerbate the problem that's going on there. That's the only update I've got so far. So we hopefully will be amending some stormwater ordinance and rules to beef up those requirements and help that situation in the long term.
Kim,
any questions for any of those projects?
Kim, may I ask a question, please?
Yes. Yes.
Russ, dropping back to the Shepherd Park drainage.
Yes, sir.
You said we were reapplying for the grant. Is that a state grant?
It is. It's a rural infrastructure grant. Yes, it's from the state.
And I'm just hopeful that council and Ms. Vance, that we are approaching our delegation for some help on getting that grant. It's just wanted to make sure that was happening.
Yes, sir. I believe last week I forwarded to you guys a request that our lobbyists sent to all of our local delegation. We put together kind of a one-pager and they sent it out to all of our delegation asking for funding for it, either directly or through support for the RA grant. I don't think we've received anything back from that, but my reason for sending it is if you see any of these people out at dinner or church or wherever, feel free to encourage them to find it in their hearts to support that and find us some money for it.
Thank you.
Next item is this Springview Lane Oakbrook drainage project. We recently just signed a design contract to design that pond system. So that's underway now. We hope to get those results, at least some preliminary results in April of this year. That's it for project updates so far. Any questions on any of those items? All right.
No.
Item B, we received a request from the owner of 317 South Laurel Street to quit claim a portion of the West 3rd South Street right of way. If you're familiar with this area, I think there's a plat that I shared. Yeah. So at the top of the page, it shows West 3rd South Street. That's the existing right of way. It's about 80 feet wide there. The property off the page, if you will, to the north is the people who requested the quit claim. As you know, if we do quit claim a piece of property like this, we have to give opportunity for the people in the south to apply or claim their half. So we would have to do that if it's approved. But however, if we do approve this quick claim, if the council does approve this quick claim, I would ask we retain this entire area as a drainage easement, because as you can see, there's a major canal that meanders through this area. So we should retain this area to be able to access and maintain that drainage canal.
What is the recommendation on this? I mean,
Recommendation is to approve it if council wants to, but to retain the entire area as a drainage
okay.
easement.
Ms.
All right.
Kim,
Yes.
I'm pretty familiar with this particular quitclaim area. My mother used to live across the street, and this is Ms. Ball's property, which is right across the street from where I currently live. The canal meanders back through there, and it's the property that attaches to her lot to the canal that they're dealing with. And my perspective would be as long as we have drainage easement to it, other than that, the town would have no use for that property now or any time in the future.
Terry,
Well,
what about the property is important to the people who are requesting it? What are they needed for?
They
It's
just,
just extension to their yard as they've explained it to me.
Mm.
No,
And
utilize the property for many, many years. They just want, like Councilman Jenkins said, just to attach it or add it to their property.
would it allow the property to be subdivided?
It would, but it would be pretty unusable since we would retain it as drainage easement. We wouldn't allow any development within the drainage easement.
Well, but if it's one lot and it's now a bigger lot because of the quit claim, they could tear down the house that's there now and subdivide it and be able to build something on the second lot, correct?
Possibly, I don't know what the frontage requirement is, but what they're asking for is about 0.35 acres, over a third of an acre. If you split it, it would cut that in half to 0.17 acres, if you will. So it's not really adding a lot. I don't recall what the size of the lot is.
Well, we've had these type of requests come up in the past, and I do think, I know you mentioned it, that we would need to contact at least one adjacent property owner. Is that right?
That's right.
I mean, my recommendation has always been the same, that we simply, if we don't need it, and it sounds like we actually do need it for drainage, to at least as an easement to maintain it, that if we were to give an easement, a quit claim, that's exactly what we should do, is quit claim half to one property owner and half to the other, whether the other property owner asks for it or not. I think that would keep somebody, a future owner, from essentially getting an additional lot out of our drainage easement.
Is that a motion?
That'd be my recommendation, that we move it to council my motion would be is we move this to council with a recommendation of approving it if we quit claim it to both property owners, half to each, and that we retain an easement for the drainage.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor? Aye. Okay, it
Aye.
goes to council.
All right, thank you. Last item I've got is just a few stormwater department project updates that the stormwater department's been working on. First is Robin Wind. They've been in Robin Wind for several months now, basically regrading all the roadside ditches, replacing driveway pipes, just getting that whole area functional. We're on the last road, so I think we're about 2 or 3 weeks away from completing the Robin Wind improvements. They just completed a canal, a repair on the Summer Bench Canal near East Richardson. There was a major washout that occurred several years ago after a storm, and that project was recently completed last week. Corey Woods, they've been in Corey Woods for several months as well. We removed 2 undersized culverts at the headwaters of Hurricane Branch. That freed up some flow. We've had a tree contractor on hand several weeks. They're about 2 weeks out from finishing the tree clearing, and the stormwater crews coming in behind that tree contractor, cleaning ditches. We'll be upgrading some pipes in that area, as well as lining some pipes for restoration. So I think when this is done, the drainage situation in Corey Woods will be greatly improved. Currently, we have a crew over off of Salisbury Drive installing a pipe in the backs of 3 properties. We've been dealing with a problem there for several years. So weather permitting, we should get out of there in another week or 2. That's all I've got.
Okay. All right. And I just wanted to add, going back to Lee Street, and I had mentioned this, I guess, a couple years ago when they had repaved Lee Street. There was some area near, I guess, a ditch area on the right side of the road that the water did not flow correctly. And I think that you had got with stormwater and mentioned that to them. Well, I guess it's still a problem. People are complaining when they turn off of Bacon's Bridge onto Lee Street, especially when it rains, there'll be a puddle of water there that they have to go through because it's not draining correctly. So I'm hoping that, when you're out there and with the sidewalk project, maybe that can be looked at the same time.
Yeah, we'll look at that at the same time. Maybe we can address it with the construction of the sidewalk.
Yeah, okay. Does anybody on the committee have anything else or any comments?
Was there another item on the agenda? I'm not sure.
The item got omitted and will be moved to Thursday night's executive session.
Okay, then I would move that we adjourn.
Second.
All right, we have we're going to adjourn. All those that say aye.
Aye.
Okay, adjourn.
All right, Mr. Andrew, Finance Committee.
All right, good evening, Mr. Mayor, Council. We finished the month of January 2021. We'll have the financial presentation. For the month of January, collected approximately 5.9 million in revenues with correlating 2.6 million in expenditures. Next, we'll show the individual areas of revenues. Property taxes collected approximately 5.6 million with 5.5 in real property. License permits and fees collected approximately 239,000. The majority of that in the business license and penalties, and then building permits. Court fines for the month of January were 14,430. State revenues collected approximately 32,000. Those coming from inventory taxes and beverage license tax. Next, we had our miscellaneous revenues, collected approximately 28,000 in miscellaneous. Majority of that coming from our cell tower rental. Next, we have our impact fee balances. As of January 31, approximately 1.27 million in impact fees. Parks and Recs facilities, 262,000. Fire facilities, 842,000. Municipal facilities, approximately 153,000. Next, we show the activity impact fees residential, approximately 9,000 collected. And expenditures of approximately 4,740. Next, we have our impact fees commercial, approximately 1,960 collected, no expenditures for the month. Next, we have our local hospitality tax, fund. We collected approximately 160,000 in fees and revenues, with approximately 110,000 in expenditures for the month of January. And finally, we have our stormwater management fund, collected approximately 600,000 in revenues, with approximately 106,000 in expenditures. All right, thank you. If anybody had any question, that was the end of the financial statements.
Thank you, Andrew.
Yes.
All right, next we have authorization to present Sergeant D. Henderson with his Glock service weapon upon his retirement in March 2021.
Make a motion that we do this, Mr. Mayor.
Second.
All in favor, signify by saying aye and raising your right hand.
Aye.
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 Authorization to surplus the following SPD vehicles with the proceeds covering associated costs of hardware and software for a Faro crime collision scene 3D measurement, imaging, and realization technology unit. P2 2010 Dodge Charger, P4 2010 Dodge Charger, P186 a 2008 Ford Crown Victoria, P230 2012 Dodge Charger, P256 2014 Dodge Charger, P258 2014 Dodge Charger, and P342 the 2013 Chevy Tahoe.
I'll make a motion, we approve that.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor, say, raise your right hand, say aye.
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 Opposed? Ayes carried.
Right.
Okay, Ms. Beth.
Next, we have authorization to surplus Parks and Recreation Vehicle Number R59, a 1998 Chevy 3500 with 119,727 miles.
Make a motion that we do this, Mr. Mayor.
Second.
Second. Okay, all in favor, signify by raising your right hand, saying aye.
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 Opposed likewise. Ayes carried. By the time we got rid of that thing, 98.
That's the first one that's actually older than the car I drive, so it was easier for me to vote for.
That's right. Okay, Ms. Beth.
All right. Authorization to issue a purchase order to Cooper Motor Company in the amount of $49,078 for a Ram 3500 with a flatbed dump. Funds to come from budgeted capital funds. This is on a state contract and the request is from the Parks and Recreation Department.
I'll make that motion.
Okay,
I'll
motion
second.
Okay, motion made and seconded. All in favor, signify by raising your right hand, saying aye.
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 Opposed likewise. Ayes carried.
All right. Authorization to issue a purchase order in the amount of $40,530.53 to Municipal Emergency Services for a sole source for SCBA's. Funds to come from budgeted capital and the request is from the Fire Department.
I'll make that motion. I'll second the motion on the conditions that we get an explanation as to what an SCBA is.
Self-contained breathing apparatus.
Yeah,
Thank you.
that's something you can put on before you go in a smoky building. Okay, all in favor, signify by raising your right hand, saying aye.
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 Opposed likewise. Ayes carried.
Authorization to issue a purchase order to Dick Smith Ford in the amount of $63,414 for a Ford F-450 for the Stormwater Department. This is on a state contract and was budgeted for in the January 1st to June 30th, 2021 budget cycle.
Motion.
Make a motion, we approve it.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor, signify by raising your right hand, saying aye.
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 Opposed likewise. Ayes carried.
All right. That's all I have.
Anything else?
Move adjourn.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed. Meeting is adjourned.
Good night.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Aye.
Aye.